So you got your EIDL loan approved. Now what do you need to know? Hey there everybody, my name is Ryan. I'm a CPA. I have my own CPA firm and I'm here to talk about what to do after you got your EIDL loan, not the grants, but the loan approved. But first, if you're new to this channel, please subscribe. I would really appreciate it. I'm trying to do my best to keep everybody updated with the latest developments, and I'm taking information that I'm learning from my clients firsthand and trying to pass it on to you. So please subscribe to my channel for more updates and like my video if you think it's helpful. Also, in the comments below, please be sure to leave what your thoughts are. And if you have any requests for future videos, like if you want to know something, I'd be happy to make videos about that. I just need to know what you guys need to know, okay? What I've been hearing more and more from people is that they're not actually getting the EIDL advance anymore. This is the advance up to $10,000 that you don't have to pay back. I'm hearing from more and more people that they're not receiving this at all. So my guess is that the SBA is probably lumping it together with a loan or just cutting out that process altogether. Somebody in my last video mentioned in the comments that they think that the SBA is doing that so that people don't just take the grants and then not the loan. So that might be what's going on here. I'm not too sure. I will try to find out more about that. So you got approved for the EIDL loan. What can you actually spend it on? And this will actually depend on whether or not you also got the PPP loan. And we'll talk about that later. So the EIDL loan is meant to be used as working capital for your company. And working capital is this money that you use for your day-to-day operations. So the EIDL can be used for things like supplies, office expenses, insurance, accounting fees, legal fees, buying inventory, just regular day-to-day operations that you need to do in order for your business to keep running. I think that's fairly straightforward. Now, if you got the PPP loan and the EIDL, you can't use them for the same things. You have to use the PPP for payroll, utilities, rent, whatever you're using the PPP for. You can't use the EIDL for those same things. Now you can use the EIDL for payroll even if you got the PPP, but it has to be after the covered period of the PPP. So, the PPP has like the covered period of 8 weeks. As of right now, it looks like that's likely going to change, but as of 8 weeks, you got to use that PPP for payroll and utilities and stuff. So after those 8 weeks, after that covered period, you can then use the EIDL for those same expenses. They just can't be used for the same things simultaneously. So what things can you not use the EIDL for? Well, first is expansion. Anything related to expansion. And some good examples of that are like using the money and putting it on a down payment for a second property or second commercial property to grow your business, or using it as a down payment for brand new equipment or improvements, major improvements to your current space. That's not allowed. You can't use the EIDL for refinancing previous long-term debt. So if you already had a long-term loan, like a business loan before the crisis, you can't just use the EIDL to refinance and pay that one off. The next thing you can't use it for is owner bonuses. That can be considered embezzling to the SBA. You get this huge loan and you just pay yourself a shit ton of money. That is, if you get audited by the SBA, they can consider that embezzling and you can be charged with a crime for that. And then the other thing you can't use, or at least you got to be very careful with, is owner distributions. If you take normal owner distributions as part of your pay, if you take like a salary and owner distribution, like some portion of either two as your normal pay for running the business, that's okay. But be very careful about taking extra owner distributions because that can be considered embezzling and or commingling. So the SBA wants to prevent you taking that money that they loaned your company and you distributing it to yourself to maybe invest in the rental property for yourself, or maybe you have business B that you contribute that money to business B, so now that's commingling your money. So don't do that. Every person that got approved for this loan may be subject to an SBA audit. That doesn't mean that you will, it just means that you may. So be very careful, keep really good records about how your funds are being dispersed and how they're being spent. What I really recommend is having, and I recommend this for the PPP too, having a separate checking account where your SBA funds are sitting in, okay? So they're not just sitting in your operating accounts, because if they're just sitting in your operating account, then it gets kind of messy on what the funds are actually used for, you know, because what if you do have long-term debt that you had before this disaster, and you just have all your funds sitting in the operating account, and you use that account to pay off your long-term debt, and you use it to pay your rent and utilities and, you know, all your other stuff. Well, then now there could be some confusion about what your SBA EIDL loan has been used to pay. So keep it in a separate account and be very intentional about what you pay with that account, okay? And again, like the last video, I'm gonna share a little bit about my opinion. I think the EIDL is a much more useful program than the PPP. The only problem is it's just taking so freaking long for the SBA to roll this program out, you know, because the PPP is meant for very specific things, and those specific things contradict mandated shutdowns. So, you know, the PPP, 75% for payroll. However, most businesses are mandated to be shut down, so they're paying their employees for what? For doing nothing. The EIDL is more broad. You can use it for more things in general. So I think the EIDL is a much more useful program. Obviously, you can't get it forgiven, but for businesses trying to stay alive, it's a much more useful program, in my opinion, than the PPP. It's just been a shit show in terms of the SBA rolling this program out. In one of my previous videos, we're seeing 6 to 8 weeks before people even see anything from the SBA since they applied. And I don't think they're funding this program enough. You know, they only got $100 billion total funded towards the EIDL, and they have over $600 billion funded towards the PPP. I don't think the EIDL is funded enough, and I think they need a better way to get funding quicker to people. I don't know if you're familiar with the whole application process, or at least the history of the application process. So they streamlined that application starting like March 30th, 2020. Before then, it was an application that probably would take an hour or two to complete. You know, you would complete the main application form, and then you had to upload all your tax documents and your financial statements, and you have like 4 or 5 other documents and application forms that you had to complete and submit. And it was a very long process, but it was bogging down the SBA's system, so people couldn't really get to it. You know, you had to log in at like 2 a.m. in order to even get into the system to fill out your application. So they streamlined the application, which made it much easier, but then it made it much more accessible to people just trying to get the SBA grant. So we have over 3 million applications for the grant/loan, and that's what's bogging down the SBA right now. So I think the streamlined application was great for getting people in line, but it just opened the doors up for so many applications that it's just, I think that's hurting their process right now. So that's all I got for today. Be sure to like this video if you enjoyed the content, and please subscribe to my channel. I'll be trying to keep you guys updated every day, hopefully. You know, when I first started this channel, my intent was one video a week, but that's too slow in this climate. So I'm trying to do this every day. So please like my video, please subscribe to my channel. Take care. I'll see you next time.